Good evening, everybody. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. It is time. We've been talking about this all week. It's time to get started with To the Polls. This is your special election coverage for today. I am your host for this special coverage, Alexis Bellamy. Across from me is 2 News anchor Lauren Wood. Lauren, good evening. I don't want to say good morning to you so badly, but good evening. How are you?
Good evening. It's great to be here. I haven't joined you for 2 News now since
the weather was
worse. In January. Oh my goodness, we were doing wall-to-wall weather coverage. So exciting to have some big news that isn't freezing. So,
yeah, right. But we're doing the same thing. We're keeping with that wall-to-wall coverage of today, of the election. It's actually coming to an end. Election day is wrapping up here. Those polls closing right now at 7:30. So those ballots have been cast, and we're going to go ahead and talk about what we're expecting. The primary ballot includes some really large races. Lauren, you touched on it. You will get to decide which candidates will face off on the big stage in November. That's what voters here in Ohio are doing today. So 2 News is your local election headquarters, and we're going to start things off with a local look, an expert look, if you will. We're covering those highly anticipated governor's race, the Ohio U.S. Senate race, the local Kettering bond issue, and so much more. So let's bring in Dr. Lee Hanna with us this morning of Wright State University. Dr. Lee Hanna, good morning. I almost did it again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
We had Dr. Hanna with us in our 5 and 6 o'clock shows on air today. Definitely good to have that expert perspective about what's going on. And one of the things that really struck me was you kind of affirmed what a lot of us had been thinking, which was like, what is going on here? Why is it so slow? It just feels like this election didn't have the tension, didn't have the the build-up and excitement that a lot of other elections do.
Yeah, it is. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. As far as at least the top level, I think we know what's going to happen. It's just the mystery is when will they call it. That certainly doesn't dismiss what are often very critical, important local issues. But it's kind of harder to cover them to a broader regional audience because in many cases they're just a few thousand people weighing in on what to do about a school levy or a fire levy or something like that. And so you're right, at the top it is a little more predictable. And on the one hand, I think that means there'll be more mystery going into the fall, just because especially with Ramaswamy and Acton, neither of them have run for elected office, and their first crack is a governor's race, right? Normally, our governors are coming from the attorney general post, or they're coming from mayor of a large city, and so we don't have that this time around. And so I think there's still just a lot of mystery, and we'll see just how good of candidates are Amy Acton and Vivek Ramaswamy in the next few weeks and months.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier I thought was so interesting is a lot of times in those primary races, you have a tighter race, a more heated race, and it kind of tests those candidates a little bit. And we're not getting that this time because the races are not decided yet, but that competition's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. On the one hand, it's nice to have not taken any crossfire, to not really have any wounds that you're bandaging up as you're bringing into the general election. But at the same time, a primary can be a helpful proving ground. And, let's say Tim Brown had put his name in the ring or, against Amy Acton. Did I say Tim Brown? Tim Ryan.
Tim Ryan, from Northeast Ohio,
Not the Raiders wide receiver. Northwest Ohio, Tim Ryan. Or let's say Dave Yost had run against Vivek Ramaswamy. I think that tonight would be much more interesting because it would be closer. But then also, I think whoever came out of that would probably be better prepared for the spring or for the fall, even though they would have spent some money, maybe dealt with a couple of negative stories. But that's kind of the trade-offs of the party circling around candidates early and not really allowing for a lot of inter-party conflict.
Why did they do that this time? I mean, we had some big names. I know on the Republican side, you've got Jim Tressel as lieutenant governor. You mentioned Dave Yost. He's been a big name on the Republicans. And then on the Democrats, Tim Ryan. I know Schiavone. Both of those guys were from Northeast Ohio. I remember hearing their names in statewide races earlier. Yeah. Why didn't we hear about them? Why did they not run?
Yeah, so I think on the Republican side, we are just seeing the power of the Donald Trump endorsement. If you think of 22, it was J.D. Vance. 24, it was Bernie Moreno. Of course, these were Senate races. But that just like froze the field. And I really thought Dave Yost would have his name in the ring, Frank LaRose. There's quite a few big names in Republican circuits that, that didn't come out. And my guess is they tested the waters and just didn't see a donor pool, didn't really see a path to viability. And in many cases, they're going to be, paying for some private polling, trying to see how competitive they are. But I just don't think I don't think they could play the long game with Ramaswamy having, such a massive lead. The Democratic side, I was a little more surprised because it is so open. I think that, I think Acton has a big name statewide compared to many people. I'd say Tim Ryan was the only other big name I could think of. I would say one of the challenges for the Democrats is, they've been in the minority for 16 years now. And it's hard to build a bench when you don't have any statewide office holders. Okay. And that's why Sherrod Brown's back, right? Because who else could do it?
Yeah. Dr. Hanna, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we will hear from you again. You're not going very far. So
absolutely. I'll be here.
Circle back. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a full night tonight. Again, we will hear from Dr. Hanna in just a little bit, but here's what our coverage consists of today, okay, you guys? We have two reporter, Kayla Fair. She's in-house here. She's coming up next. She's on the Ohio governor's race. She's previewing that for us. Next up, we have 2 News reporter Evan Bales, who's also in-house working on that U.S. Senate race preview himself. 2 News reporter Sartaj Singh, Kirsten Reedford, Morgan Anderson, Julian Jackson. You guys, we have a lot of team coverage for you tonight, really just diving into this. Lauren, what were you guys on earlier tonight as you guys just saw the weather? Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm looking to find out if that was much of an impact on turnout tonight.
Definitely a lot of rain today. Hopefully I know Jack was talking about he was able to get 18 holes of golf in. So there was definitely some dry. He was. And so there definitely was some dry time that you could get out there and go to the polls. But there was also a lot of rain and some other issues. So
okay. We're hearing about it in just a little bit. Yeah. But for now, we are going to go to 2 News reporter Kayla Ferris. Again, she is ready for us. She's going to preview essentially what we've been seeing so far today in the governor's race. Kayla, good evening. I did not tell you good morning. Good evening.
I know. I'm going to keep about a tally. To say it too.
Seriously.
Good evening, ladies. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. So we're taking a look at things statewide. We know there were 5 people looking to be Ohio's next governor. Kayla, you had sit-down conversations with several of them over the past couple of weeks. What did they tell you going into today? The election?
Well, there was a lot that we talked about. I met with the Democratic candidate, Amy Acton, Dr. Amy Acton, who I can say we just found out AP has called her race. It's not a surprise because she was the only Democrat who was on the ballot for governor, but she is moving on to the November general election. So that's been called in the past couple of minutes. I also sat down with Republican frontrunner Vivek Ramaswamy. He has endorsements from President Donald Trump and the current governor, who is Governor Mike DeWine. And then I also sat down with 2 Libertarian candidates, Don Kissick and Travis Vogt. And then the last person who's running for governor, who is a Republican candidate, is Casey Putsch. And I did not get the chance to speak to him. I reached out to his team, and he was not available. But I had candid conversations with all of them. We talked about everything from the economy to, obviously, we have a big Haitian population with TPS in Springfield. Mm-hmm. We talked about a lot of different things and how to make Ohio more affordable. And it was very insightful to hear from all of the candidates and their different approaches to the governor's seat.
I'm curious, Kayla, when you were talking to them, especially with Dr. Acton and Ramaswamy, were they already looking toward November, or were they focused on what was happening today?
Well, Dr. Acton was definitely focused towards November. Like I said, she is running unopposed for the Democratic seat for governor. So she was always looking towards November. But it was interesting because she pretty much framed Ramaswamy as her main competitor. And he kind of did the same thing with her. And in the interviews, I talked to both of them about each other. They, and I asked them questions about the other person. But it seemed like Ramaswamy was focused on Acton and Acton was focused on Ramaswamy. Mm-hmm. He didn't spend any time talking about Casey Putsch, talking about Heather Hill, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but she's now out of the race. But at the time when I interviewed him, she was in the race. So it seemed like these 2 frontrunners, they know that it's going to be them in November, even though the it hasn't been announced yet for the Republican side. It seemed like they kind of
Pretty set.
were set and knew what was going to happen.
What were the big issues that they were focused on?
A lot of them were focused, and I asked questions pertaining to the economy, and they all had different things that they were going to do to try and make Ohio more affordable. Obviously, that's the big thing that everybody talks about around the dinner table. For Dr. Acton, she was talking about implementing a child tax credit. That was something she talked about. Also, knowing she's a doctor, one of her big things was forgiving medical debt. That's something that she's interested in doing. Also, homestead exemption. I asked all of them about property taxes. As we know, this is a big push.
Issue, yes.
A lot of people want to get rid of property taxes. Ramaswamy said that he is wanting to give the biggest property tax rollback since the COVID-19 pandemic. So that was a big ticket item for him. He also talked about nuclear energy, bringing nuclear energy into the state. And a hot topic right now, data centers. He wants to lower electricity bills and make sure that data centers pay for their own electricity that they're using to run these data centers. For the Libertarians, Kissick, he wants to roll back a whole bunch of taxes or lower a whole bunch of taxes, income, property, diesel fuel taxes. And for Vote, he wants to also end owner-occupied property taxes. And they both are interested in reducing school districts, which was another interesting thing that we can talk about later on in the show.
Kayla, that was a great breakdown. Thank you so much. We know we'll have you back in just a little bit. All right, but for now, we're going to switch things up a little bit. We are going to switch gears. We are going to go now with a live interview with Montgomery County Board of Elections Director Jeff Resbeck. He's on standby. We're going to hear from him. And just essentially one of the big things we talked about just now, Lauren, was the impact weather may have had on turnout. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about that when he gets in here in just a few minutes. But all righty, we are ready now. Let's go ahead and pull that up. There he is. Good evening, Director. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, everyone.
Tell us a little bit about how voter turnout has been today.
Well, today voter turnout, we got almost up to 20%. I think the rain hurt us a little bit early on, but when it cleared up, like I always indicate, that it's always sunny in Montgomery County on Election Day. When that sun did come out, voters did come out, and it was a good time. I know the weather probably went a little bit haywire, at least in the last couple hours, but we did have a good turnout today.
And it was that turnout, you said it was around 20%. Is that about what you guys anticipate or expect for a primary election like this?
Yeah, for a primary election like this, overall, that's what we were in 20 to 25%. We'll see what the final numbers come out, but we do expect that in this kind of race. We know in certain areas, like in the Kettering area, turnout was much higher than that. So that was what they had a bond issue that was driving that.
I know you guys had a little bit of a surprise with the water main break. Tell us what happened there and just how quickly things were able to get resolved with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We had at Revive Church, was one of our polling locations, literally across the street. They had a water main break, so the one entrance, we had to work with the city of Dayton to have their crews in there, clean that up, stop that. So for about 3 hours, we had to reroute people around just over to Needmore. Voters were happy about it. Everyone was interested in how much water was out there. Got cleaned up, and I can't thank the sheriff's office enough and Dayton Water because they cleaned that up, and even Dayton Water was helping me put the poll signs back out to make sure the voters knew where to go. So although it's a small little thing, we wanted to make sure our voters knew how to get to that polling location.
Who knows? Maybe people came out just to see it.
Yeah,
you never know, right? Other than that, did you guys have any issues that were unexpected?
Not really. We had one polling location lose power for about 3 minutes or so. And then the typical kind of stuff, a printer went down here or whatever. But we had we had rovers out in the field and our 1,600 poll workers that were out there making sure voters got to exercise their right to vote and cast those candidates who will be up on the ballot in November. So it was a good day for us.
Anything different that will be happening in November as compared to today?
No, the one thing that was different for this race, and we had to get those absentee ballots in by 7:30 already today. That's going to be the big thing again for those voters that didn't participate in this election. We're going to have to kind of continue to educate them to make sure that if they're doing an absentee ballot, to get it into us as early as possible, and then make sure they're in by election evening, 7:30. Then the big thing was that we normally have about 80% return rate. By this past weekend, we were only at 68. I've not seen the last numbers come in on that absentee yet.
And that is that what you about expected, or that's not something that you guys were expecting for this primary
Well,
election?
over the last couple elections, including the May elections and that, I've been tracking how well we've been doing. The voters have been doing on turning in their absentee early, and we were always 80 to 85%
Okay.
on the weekend before Election Day. This time we were only at 68, so I don't know why we did that slip, especially when we tried to promote that. You had to get that ballot in by 7:30 tonight.
I'm curious, Jeff, with that new deadline, is that going to change anything for you guys? Is that going to mean we're going to get election results certified sooner, or what does that really mean on your end?
Well, the first thing is what we're going to try and do tonight is not only we are going to stay here getting all those late, I don't want to say late, but all those ballots, that absentee ballots that came in at 7:30 by 7:30, we would normally kind of hold them off and run them with the provisionals. We're actually going to try and run those all tonight, and then the next thing that you'll only hear is for the certification and the final results. We'll just be adding in those provisionals that are appropriate to count. And so we're going to try and get more numbers in tonight. And so you'll see kind of the big push all the way through till about 9:30. It might slow down a little bit because then that's when we're trying to process and make sure all the votes that should be counted can be counted. And then we will put those in and hopefully get everything done. I mean, my goal is to push this team, and they've been doing a great job, get everything in by 10:30.
Did you guys have to rework stuff in order to meet these new deadlines and everything, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, we had to increase staff, and we had to increase just the way we did the processes. All day we've been processing. We usually kind of did it in like sections, early morning, then maybe in the afternoon. We took part of our team, and they worked all day on the absentee ballots that were coming in. So that was a new shift for us. The team did great, and I think that's what's happening around in all the other counties. We're all trying to meet these goals and deadlines, and I think knowing what happens out in Greene County and Miami County, Butler, and Warren County, they're doing great jobs out there. The same things we are, getting those results in as quick as we can, so the public knows how they voted and what those results were. And those candidates are sitting back trying to wait for those results as well.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and breaking that down for us. We will see you again soon as well with an update.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Alrighty, so now we are going to turn our attention. We're going to go back in-house. The Ohio Senate primary also underway, setting up the candidates that'll be on the ticket for that big stage in November. 2 News reporter Evan Bales is here with more on that race. We actually just had that call. Evan is going to go ahead and update us with that. Evan, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, it's been we've had a lot of mornings on this show, so fair enough. But we just got some news in here about that Democratic Senate primary. Sherrod Brown is leading Ron Kincaid in this race. I believe we saw around 93% for Brown when I last checked. So he's pulling pretty far ahead, and I think that's something that we expected.
All right.
You got to talk to Kincaid, who is definitely an underdog in the race, kind of a newcomer. What were the big differences between what Sherrod Brown had to say and what Ron Kincaid had to say about the issues?
So a lot of things, when I had a chance to sit down with Ron Kincaid over a Zoom call, he stressed a lot of what I think what people in Ohio especially would consider very, very progressive policies. He wanted to instate what's called a dividend plan, which essentially would be he would be taxing certain businesses or whatnot. He emphasized specifically businesses that relied heavily on automation and AI, taxing them heavily and giving that money to American families depending on essentially what tax bracket that they were in order to kind of help with financial and economic stability on that end. He wanted to push more for public health care and affordable housing as well. So he had a lot of points that he wanted to get out there, and a lot of progressive policies that frankly that you didn't really hear a lot of from with Sherrod Brown. I didn't get a chance to talk with Mr. Brown while he was on the campaign trail. But from that interview that we did do with him, there was a lot of him saying that he needs to be back in Congress so that he can get things back on track, steer the attention away from foreign policy and more towards the domestic front.
Evan, talk to us about these candidates and their backgrounds and how that may have had a role in some of the things that they are taking a stance on in their interest here, from what you can.
Sure. Yeah, just starting with Sherrod Brown. I mean, everybody knows his name in the state. He's been with the U.S. Senate for a very, very long time. He's been very active in Washington. So he has a litany of political accomplishments under his belt. So people know his name, and I think name recognition played a big part, especially in a lot of the votes that you're seeing for him. With Ron Kincaid, when I got a chance to sit down with him, he was actually born here in the Miami Valley, here in Centerville, back when he called it when it was a little village. So when I did have a chance to speak with him, he's had a lot of time in political advocacy and whatnot, especially on the healthcare and Medicare and Medicaid side. So he said that when he saw Sherrod Brown lose to Bernie Moreno in 2024, he said that was the big push, big leap of faith for him to put his name on the ticket this May.
Have you gotten any impression from the interviews that we've done with Sherrod Brown that he wants to do things differently this time since he did lose to Bernie Moreno? Did that change anything for him and his platform or his priorities?
If I'm being completely honest, it didn't really seem that way. When we had a chance to speak with them, it was, forgive me, but it was a lot of John Husted isn't doing enough for Ohioans, and I will do enough for Ohioans. And frankly, the interview was a little vague. That we did with him, essentially that Husted is taking a lot of money from billionaire PACs and whatnot, and that's something that he won't do, and that he will advocate for Ohioans. So that was kind of the gist of the interview that we got from him.
Gotcha. I know Husted is running unopposed. You were not able to talk with Husted. His campaign wasn't able to make him available.
That's correct. And actually, at 6:13 this evening, I finally got an email from someone on his team saying, apologizing that they had missed my earlier reach out attempts. So that's all well and good. It's a very busy time of year for them.
Sure.
But they essentially told me that there will be no media availability for them later tonight, and they sent me a statement essentially saying we'll be moving on to the November ballot since he was running unopposed.
All righty. Evan, thank you so much. We will see more from you in a little bit, just as we continue to go through the night with our election coverage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Lauren, we're going to go to an update now. We just had our producer come over and tell us the Associated Press has called the Ohio governor's race. Vivek Ramaswamy has that. There we go right there. Take a look at that. So more than 36,000 of the votes. Look at that. Just the comparison there, Lauren, with votes and the percentage-wise.
And this is, of course, for the Republican candidacy for governor. We know Amy Acton was running unopposed for the Democratic nomination. I know when we talked earlier to Kayla, she was kind of covering the governor's race for us. She was talking about how when she talked to the candidates, it seemed like Vivek and Dr. Amy Acton were both already looking towards November, already looking toward each other kind of as their primary opponents. So it seemed like Amy Acton was focused on Vivek Ramaswamy being her opponent, and Kayla said Vivek actually was looking more toward Amy Acton than to Casey Push for who his main opponent was, kind of the hurdle that he was looking towards. So it looks like he was correct in that. Yeah. And the AP again has called this race for Vivek Ramaswamy. He will be the Republican candidate for governor in November.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, and we talked when we were talking with Dr. Lee Hanna. He said that it did really seem like getting that kind of MAGA push, that Trump endorsement was big for Ramaswamy, and we're seeing that with those numbers right now.
Yeah, and remember he did run for president back in 2019, and Lauren, you just mentioned he dropped out for that endorsement and did endorse President Trump's reelection bid. So that's really something we were expecting to see there. And we'll have more updates for you on election night as we make our way through this evening.
All right. We actually have a statement from Vivek.
Go ahead, Lauren.
After the Associated Press called the Ohio Republican gubernatorial primary in his favor, Vivek Ramaswamy released the following statement saying, quote, "I know the American dream exists because I've lived it right here in the state where I was born and raised. We're going to revive that American dream in Ohio once again with lower costs, bigger paychecks, and better schools for all Ohioans. I'm grateful to everyone who helped us win today's election by historic margins, and I look forward to a decisive victory again in November." And that is the statement from Vivek Ramaswamy after winning Ohio's GOP gubernatorial primary. That race officially called by the Associated Press, with Vivek Ramaswamy getting 86% of the vote, over 36,000 votes right now.
All right, thank you, Lauren. We'll have more on that as we continue to make our way through the night. Let's turn now, continue to look local at the state of the buildings at Kettering local schools. That is our next topic for tonight. So they'll be decided at the ballot box today as well. Joining us now is 2 News reporter Sartaj Singh. He's been covering this, has been your topic, Sartaj. So we know the money generated from that bond issue will go towards a new building as well as building existing ones.
Yeah, that's right. So the main goals for this bond issue is that, one, it'll build a new high school. So Fairmont, or not high school, middle school. It'll build a new middle school, and Fairmont Middle School will be near where the current middle school is right now. And then the high school will receive upgrades to its academic wing. And then along with the elementary school, it'll be some HVAC and some building repairs too. So there's a lot going into the structure of the existing buildings, but also a brand new building is at stake here with this bond issue. And right now it's just looking to see, when I talked to the superintendent as well as the treasurer and also a parent as well, they said that they want to bring these buildings up to current state of education. They said the buildings were built, some of them are over 50 years old. So they were built during the time of education and meeting the standards of education in those times. But now they want to bring it up to date to today's times and have a future ready building for their education.
How old are those buildings?
Yeah, some of them range from 50 to 77 years old. So right now, the middle school is the oldest building right now in the district. So that's why that one is going to get more of a new building in general. The high school and elementary school are both up there also, but right now the need for Kettering schools is a new middle school. And the other one is just high school, redoing the academic wings, and then just building repairs for the elementary school.
I know, Sartaj, you spent a lot of time doing background on this issue, talking with people in Kettering, talking with the school. Is it a really high energy issue? Is this something that people in Kettering seem to care a lot about? And if so, which direction did you get the feel that that people were passionate toward?
The one parent that I did talk to is actually heading a group for this bond issue. His child has special needs, and he says that right now Kettering is doing a lot to meet the needs of his child, of his daughter, and he thinks that all these implementations of this new plan will only help and further her education. And he said that's the same mindset with all the parents that are for this bond and that are for this, because they want to make sure that their students and all the future students of Kettering have the most up-to-date, state-of-the-art education system in place and buildings in general in place. Now, there are some opposition to it, and from what I've been able to gather is that the main opposition, of course, is the money. A lot of people saying that this is already a tense economy, adding more onto it, because right now, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but this is asking for 5.93 mils. And that's estimated at a cost of $17.30 per $100,000 of a home property value. So it is going to be up there in price. And some people who are opposed to it saying this economy is already tense, maybe it's something that they don't want to have to deal with now versus the future.
What happens for the district if this does not pass?
If it doesn't pass, I talked with the treasurer and superintendent, and they said they still have options, but it does limit what they could do next.
Right.
They talked about the opportunity of diving into their general fund, but that general fund is already used for regular maintenance programs and stuff like that. So if this were not to pass, they would have to dive into the general fund and look for other avenues to fund that new building, because they really do want to update these buildings to meet the needs of their students and also make it up more present day education in those buildings. So that is the option that they're looking at, is that they might have to dive into the general fund if this does not pass.
Gotcha. Sartaj, thank you so much for coming on and breaking that down for us. We will continue with more updates, more of that team coverage as we go through the night. But for now, To the Polls is going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll continue on with the latest on this election news on Tuesday, May 5th. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to jump straight into Vivek Ramaswamy's acceptance speech for that Republican nomination for Ohio governor. Let's get right into that.
With your help, when we win this November, that is exactly what we are about to do for our state, not just making Ohio great again, but to make Ohio greater than we have ever been. That's what we're about to do together. So thank you tonight for kicking off the next chapter of this journey. I do believe that this marks, without exception, the single most consequential election for governor that our state has ever seen in our history. There has never been a greater contrast between two candidates. Perhaps the most important contrast between myself and my opponent is our vision and our attitude towards success. I believe that success is something that we ought to celebrate as a people, something that we ought to celebrate as a state, our educational success, your family's economic success, your individual success, America's civic success. I believe in celebrating success. And the person I'm running against in this race believes in villainizing success. She will remind you every day that I'm a billionaire, and I will remind you that I was not born a billionaire, I was not born a millionaire, I was not born in anything heir, I was born an heir to nothing, okay? But my story is possible in this great country and in our great state because we embrace free enterprise, because we embrace liberty, because we embrace the idea of exceptionalism and the pursuit of excellence. That is who we are. And Thomas Jefferson famously said, he signed the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago. Shortly after, he said, "The government you elect is the government you deserve." It's almost as though he was talking about 2026, our year right here in this election for governor of Ohio. We can wake up to one or two Ohios later this year. We can wake up to an Ohio where we're bringing down your electric bills because we're producing more energy in Ohio. We can wake up to an Ohio where your property taxes are coming down because it's your land and not the government's. We can wake up to an Ohio where we are on a path to putting our state on our way to a zero income tax state because it is your money, not the government's. And frankly, we can compete with states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee. We can wake up to an Ohio where our children are doing better in math and reading and writing, being taught how to actually perform well in our schools rather than indoctrinated with victimhood psychology. One where housing prices are going down because we're cutting the red tape to build more homes in our state, to make that American dream and home ownership more affordable to the next generation. And we can wake up to an Ohio where we are more united, because it is easier to connect with our fellow neighbors and to be united in a rising economic tide. That is one Ohio where we can wake up to in November, and that is where I will lead this state if you elect me this November. The other, I'll take applause for that. Thank you. That's where we're headed. But there's a different version of how this could go if my opponent comes anywhere near the levers of power. Could be an Ohio where businesses are once again fleeing our state in droves, where you see a $21 billion plus income tax hike coming to you directly in 2027, one where our property taxes continue to go up, one where our public schools remain beholden to the bureaucracy that is choking the success of our students, and one where we celebrate victimhood instead of success. That's what the other Ohio looks like. I'm proudly the most pro-free enterprise, pro-liberty, conservative, and pro-capitalist governor this state will have ever seen, running against, unfortunately, what would be the first socialist governor than we have ever seen. And I want to say a word about the contrast here, because this is really important. The traditional Republican criticism of Amy Acton, and I'm sympathetic to this, is that she advanced and advocated for the lockdowns, which have not aged well, lockdowns of our public schools, where our kids in Cincinnati public schools were shut out of their schools for 2 years, while my alma mater of St. X was closed for 5 days. Those kids in those public schools will never get those 2 years of their education back. That's unforgivable. One where businesses were shuttered, and we actually chased businesses and entrepreneurs to states like Florida or Texas, where they could thrive rather than in Ohio. That's the traditional Republican critique of Amy Acton, and I agree with it, because those were poor policy choices for her to advance and to advocate for. But I think the deeper criticism, and I think this is really important to understand, is it's not going to be a pandemic the next time around. It's going to be different, tough decisions that we need to make as a state. We don't know what those are going to be. It's part of electing a leader is you're not electing just a slate of policies. You're electing somebody who we believe as a people is actually fit to lead our state. And what disappoints me about Amy Acton, somebody who I will tell you, I was rooting for her success as an Ohioan and as an American. She was a Democrat, but Rob, you said it the day you accepted this nomination to be lieutenant governor, that you voted for her confirmation. You were rooting for her success. I was rooting for her success. I think I speak for everyone in this room. We were all rooting for the success of anyone who leads our state in a tough time. But what disappoints me is somebody who could not draw the distinction between older Ohioans who might have been at risk of death from COVID-19 versus younger second and third and fourth grade students who are not at risk of death from COVID-19, but who are shut out and are at risk of depression, anxiety, and learning loss as a consequence of those decisions. Someone who had no patience to distinguish between actually those who were naturally immune, who had been exposed to the virus and could be let back out from lockdowns versus somebody who had not. And the gall, the temerity to wear a white coat and signify to the public for hours on end that you were a scientific authority without actually drawing those basic distinctions that were actually guided by science reflects an utter laziness and abandonment of responsibility that our public deserves in our leaders. And when Rob and the other legislators told her that we had to take a more nuanced, science-driven approach, you want to know what she did? She quit. To me, that is the most damning indictment of somebody who wants to lead this state. I will never quit on Ohio. We will always do the work required to make the best decisions required to deliver you lower costs, bigger paychecks, better schools, to deliver you a revival of that American dream that I know exists, that American dream that I have lived in this state, that we want for your kids and for your families. We will stop at nothing to do the work, to make the hard decisions, not to run away from them, not to chase the front of a camera with a white coat, but to actually do the work, to understand how we're going to rebuild infrastructure to take Ohio to new heights, how we're going to wring out the waste, fraud, and abuse out of an abused Medicaid system, to put that money back in your pockets where it belongs, and to bring down health insurance premiums while we're at it, to make life more affordable in this state so when our kids graduate, if you work hard and you play by the rules, you get to have a good life and then dream for an even better life for your kids, that you're free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is my pledge to every person in this state who voted for me today and who will vote for us in November. Our pledge to you is that we will deliver you lower costs, bigger paychecks, and better schools. And my pledge to every person who does not vote for us this November is also lower costs, bigger paychecks, and better schools, and we will protect your right to complain about it at every step of the way. But what I will tell you is that I believe we're on the cusp of a new dawn for Ohio, one where we reconnect with our roots of ambition, the state that raised Neil Armstrong and John Glenn and the Wright brothers and Thomas Edison, the state that led the first industrial revolution, the state where Toledo led the world in glass production, the state where Akron led in rubber production, the state where Youngstown and Cleveland led in steel production, the state where Dayton led in computing, the state where my hometown of Cincinnati was known around the world as the Queen City, will once again be at the forefront of our country, the bleeding edge of our country from the center of our country. A state that patriots across this country actually flock to and flock back to, including so many of our kids and grandkids whom I have thought they were finding refuge in other states coming back to, not because we forced them to, but because this is the state in the United States, and dare I say, this is the state on planet Earth, where the best opportunities are actually available to them. That is why I'm running to be your next governor. It is not for fame, it is not for fortune. Our family has been blessed beyond our wildest imagination, beyond what my parents or Apurva's parents could have imagined just a few decades ago. But I am in this, and I speak for Rob and myself here. We are in this because we believe that together, with the complementary skills that we bring to the table, we are the two people in this state who can work together as a team to lead Ohio back to our true potential, to our greatest heights, to put more money in your pocket, to bring down those costs, and to give our kids the world-class education that is the birthright of every Ohioan. And so we are asking you tonight, on the night that we have secured our primary victory, thank you for everybody who got us through this finish line, with a historic margin. The final numbers are coming in. We're going to see them tomorrow morning, but I think what they will show you is that the Republican Party coming out of a primary for governor has never been more united than we are tonight. With that energy behind us, we now go to the next destination, the election in November, where we're going to ask every one of you to do your part, to show up. It might be a rainy night or by then a snowy night. Might be a night where, things are unplanned, things happen. You never know. We're going to ask you to do your part and still show up. Not just once. Not just to vote once, but what I say is the equivalent of voting 10 times. That means you bring 9 other people out with you who otherwise would not have shown up to vote in an election. And don't just make it another Republican. Talk to your neighbors and your friends, and we do have friends. If we're Republicans, we have plenty of friends who are not yet Republicans, okay, who may vote with us this November, who are independents, libertarians, orphaned Reagan Democrats, or politically homeless for that matter. I don't care what you call yourself. If you care about giving your kids and your family the same shot at the American dream that this state and this country gave to me and to my family, if you care about giving our kids that world-class education, then honest to God, we will work with you to lead our state to greater heights than we have ever seen. Because we are not a state in decline, we are not a region in decline, we are not a nation in decline. We are a state and a nation still in our ascent. And by the time we're done, maybe even by the end of next year, it will be Ohio that sets the national standard that Texas and Tennessee and Florida look up to rather than the other way around. Once we work together and deliver it this November, we're going to enter an age that makes Ohio the state that the other 49 states actually aspire to. We ask for your help. You all do your part. I promise you, Rob and his family, my family and I, we will do ours to make sure that Ohio's best days and America's best days are actually still ahead of us. Thank you for coming out today, guys. God bless you and your families, and let's win this thing in November. Thank you.
And that was Ohio Republican gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, whose acceptance speech after the Associated Press called that race. He is officially the Republican candidate for governor for Ohio. You will see his name on the ballot in November.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to talk again with Dr. Lee Hanna, professor of political science at Wright State University. Dr. Hanna, thank you so much for joining us again. There's a lot to unpack there. He spoke for quite a while. I noticed one of the things that he really spent a great deal of time on was COVID. We're 6 years, more than 6 years now after COVID. I was kind of surprised to hear that much about it. How much of an issue do you think what happened back in 2020 will be come November here in Ohio?
Yeah, I think a lot will be in the ads that Ramaswamy chooses to run, whether he goes there or does more, kind of his broader vision. Just watching that, I forget how good Ramaswamy is on the stump. He's very natural and, very persuasive. Thinking back to 24 when he ran for president for a short while in that primary, he does have good charisma and presence on stage. And is trying to lay out the theory of the case. And of course, Acton would have a counterpoint to everything that he just stated. But I, like you, I was a little surprised. He went to COVID. I do have to say from a just kind of broader standpoint, I don't think reminding people about COVID is exactly great politics for anyone. So we'll see if they kind of move past that. But certainly that may be one of the bigger liabilities for Acton is that, she really did cut her teeth during that era. It's also just interesting to see, he mentioned that they were much more unified. And I mean, he is right in terms of just the numbers, what he put up compared to Casey Pusch. If you compare that to, DeWine had challengers that got, I think, a larger margin. It's so interesting to see the party unified behind him. And then if you look at Mike DeWine, I know he's endorsed him, but it's relatively quiet. Yeah.
All right. It looks like we have
Perfect.
another
one.
acceptance speech.
Okay. So we are going to go ahead to Sherrod Brown for Ohio now. We're going to take that and we're going to come right back to expert Dr. Hanna.
And if that doesn't work, then fine them when they deny your claims. The drug companies, let's make it illegal for them to charge Americans more than they do in other countries because the same pill should be the same price. And we're going to take on the politicians who are more interested in enriching themselves than they are in serving you. Last year, get this, members of Congress while sitting in Congress, made more than $600 million in stock trades. No wonder they're not serving us. No wonder they don't stand up to these corporate interests. They're too busy lining their own pocket. And what's worse, I'll bet you that doesn't even surprise you. No one who serves in Congress, no spouse should be able to trade stocks. They shouldn't be able to turn around when they leave office and become a lobbyist. If you can't agree to that, you have no business in public office, period. Now, I know what a lot of Ohioans are thinking. There's no way we can get any of this done. The system's too broken for any progress. I understand that cynicism. We've come to expect all this, unfortunately, and more from Washington, all for good reason. But I know you and we can change things for the better. We've done it before. We capped the price of insulin at $35 for Medicare beneficiaries. We expanded health care for veterans exposed to those football field-sized burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan. We saved the pensions of tens of thousands of Ohioans who were ripped off by Wall Street. We restored Social Security for 250,000 Ohioans who have paid in and who have earned it. So I'll tell you a story about that. It's a woman named Barbara Ward, a bus driver who for 40 years drove special needs kids along the Ohio River in Lawrence County, Ohio, 200 miles a day. When her husband passed away, she was denied the Social Security that they had earned because no one in Washington would listen until we finally fixed it. Barbara Ward, now because of the Social Security Fairness Act, Barbara Ward, who was getting $300 a month Social Security before that became law, is now getting $1,900 a month. That's the kind of change we need a lot more of it. But instead of working to bring down costs and taking on corporate interests, politicians in Washington are making it worse. We know that. Just look at John Husted. Hold on. There is more, trust me. He's saying Ohioans struggle. He says Ohio's struggling financially. Those who are struggling don't know, in his words, how to navigate the real world. Think of that. I think we know who's out of touch with the real world, and it's John Husted. We know why Ohioans can't keep up with rising costs, no matter how hard they work, because politicians like John Husted give handout after handout to corporations and billionaires, the same corporations and billionaires he cashes in from, the same corporations and billionaires that fund his campaign. John Husted voted not once, not twice. John Husted voted 9 times against lowering health insurance premiums, costing 120,000 Ohioans their health insurance. Why did he do that? Well, he did that because he's taken $700,000 in campaign contributions from those same insurance companies that jacked up your rates. He cast the deciding vote to gut Medicaid for 490,000 Ohioans and to cut Medicare. Why? Again, to pay for a tax cut for his billionaire friends and his buddies in corporate America. He took more than $116,000 from one of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators, including a maximum donation just last year, and then weeks later, John Husted voted against releasing the Epstein files. And John Husted voted 6 times in favor of the White House's war in Iran. It's raised the price of groceries and fertilizer and diesel for all of us and for our farmers. 6 times he voted. And get this, Husted says, these are his words, says the war is going much better than anyone thought it would. And Husted wrote the law that allowed utility companies to jack up electricity prices in Ohio. No surprise. That's caused us, again, no surprise, it's caused us to have the second highest increase in electric rates of any state in the country. It's exactly what people hate about politics. John Husted works for big corporations and for Ohioans, and you pay for it. Ohio doesn't have to accept that kind of corruption. It's why we see Ohioans of all backgrounds, all over the state, showing up to fight for change. We see backed rooms. We see right here in Cleveland tonight, in Youngstown, in Columbus, in Marietta. These Ohioans know the system is rigged against them, and they know John Husted has made it worse. So Ohio's fighting back. People are showing up. They're insisting on change. They're demanding a senator who will work for Ohio, not for the utility companies, not for the drug companies, not for the insurance companies, not for big oil, not for Wall Street. Someone who will be on your side. That's what you and that's what Ohio voted for today. Together we're going to win. I'm in this fight with you and this fight alongside you every step of the way. Because when you love this country, you fight for the people who make it work. Thank you so much.
That was our second. That was our second acceptance speech of the night. All right, that was Sherrod Brown. He just won the Ohio Democratic U.S. Senate primary. He's going to face off again against John Husted in November. So we're going to go back to Dr. Lee Hanna now and get his expert opinion from our second acceptance speech of the night. Dr. Hanna, welcome on back in. What were the big takeaways from Sherrod just now?
Yeah, I think we see that populist message that we know Sherrod Brown for. He's talking about Husted and his billionaire friends and his bailouts to them, et cetera. He also brought up the Epstein files, which I think may be something that really does animate this general election across the country. So he's playing the greatest hits. He's talking about middle class issues and trying to get back in the Senate. Just one interesting piece of context about this. This is a special election. Whoever wins this race, Husted or Brown, is going to have to be reelected in 2028. So this is a bit of a tough slog, and that's because J.D. Vance won the full term back in 2022 when he stepped away to be vice president. DeWine had the appointment up until this next election. So it's interesting that we could see the winner of this have to turn around and fight for their life to get reelected in 28.
I'm curious, Dr. Hanna, is this the same Sherrod Brown who lost to Bernie Moreno on November 5th of 2024? Are we seeing any changes on issues or anything that's going to appeal differently to people than what we saw 2 years ago?
I love that question. I think Sherrod Brown is probably pretty set in his ways at this point. He's been running for Senate since 2006. I think the difference is the context that he's running in. I think 24, he knew there were some headwinds, probably not as severe as they were for the Democratic Party across the country, but it is a lot harder to run for office when you're already in power and people are dissatisfied with one or many issues that you have to hold responsibility for. This time he's going to have a tailwind because he's coming in as a challenger to an administration that is taking on a lot of headwinds, and so I think the climate gives him a better shot. Kind of like 2018, where he held serve against Jim Renacci in what we kind of call a blue wave election.
No, and I did want to ask, you just talked on the Epstein files, and we know that's actually been a very hot topic of conversation for the last several months. Was that something you were expected to hear mentioned so heavily in that acceptance speech, and kind of like as a centerpiece, I guess I'll ask?
Yeah, I was surprised. And, of course, he was trying to say that Husted has already made some consequential votes. So he put that, not opening up the Epstein files kind of in the same category as voting for some healthcare cuts. So, we'll see how far he runs with that. And then, of course, there is the Les Wexner donations, which, is a bit of a stain that Husted had to return that money and everything else. So certainly I think he will prosecute that case as best he can, and try to tie Husted to the broader Republican Party that is less popular than they were in the state in 2024. Are they less popular as if Sherrod Brown's going to win? Certainly not a prediction of that, but it's going to be closer than it was in 24, barring some kind of exceptional change and kind of where things are.
I know one of Sherrod Brown's big talking points is that Husted's funded by billionaires, and he's the one that has the blue collar workers and the grassroots support. Is that something that is going to carry him through this? How much do those campaign dollars really impact public perception?
Good question, Lauren.
Yeah, that is a really good question. You certainly want to paint your candidate, your opponent, as being more of a AstroTurf type of candidate than a grassroots. And so it is effective to say that these, kind of sneaky billionaires are just trying to pull the strings in the background. I think that is an effective tactic, up until some point. And, certainly I think that they'll be looking for, every bit of evidence that they can use to kind of throw against Husted in terms of who supports him. And, the Husted campaign is going to do the same thing. I'm sure they will find some surly characters that have supported Sherrod Brown in the past that they'll try to remind people of as we get closer to the election.
Gotcha. Dr. Hannon, thank you so much again for your synopsis on that. We'll have more from you in just a little bit. But for now, at 8:28, we're going to take a quick break. To the Polls will be right back with the latest on our election coverage tonight. Don't go away. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Polls. It is 8:32. We've gotten through 2 acceptance speeches already. We've brought you several updates, and we've still got plenty more to go, Lauren. This is going to be a long night. We're going to be here until 10:30. We started at 7:30. We've got so much covered, but for now, we're going to keep on with that coverage. We're turning now to 2 News reporter Kirsten Reedford in Troy, where a consumption tax is on the Miami County ballot. It's causing higher turnout, and voters are taking to the polls now to decide on a tax for the local jail, another hot button issue. Kirsten, you look good under the umbrella. I'm happy you're staying dry. So tell us what happens if this tax does end up passing.
Yeah, of course. So Alexis and Lauren, basically what happens if this passes is it could cause people to have higher costs to their daily items. So it would basically cause a 0.5% increase to things that you would be buying on a regular basis. So this can be for anything. It's really just a sales tax. And really what this would look like in your daily life is if, say, for instance, you went out and you spent $100, it would only add 50 cents to what you're spending your money on.
And this is all going to go toward a new jail if it does pass, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
For you. So this building behind me is actually the Miami County Safety Building. Inside of that building is where the jail is right now. If the tax passes, it would build a new jail in a whole different area. There's already another existing jail. Maximum security where you tend to find more of your more intense crimes, if that makes sense.
Okay, and that does lead me into my next question, Kirsten, which is who would this new jail essentially help? Oh, I think we may have lost Kirsten. Okay, we're working on getting Kirsten back.
Unfortunately, I think I'm having an issue hearing you, but I'm going to go ahead and just keep talking about what we've been seeing. So on top of what we've already been seeing, we actually have some turnout from the early voting that we've seen today. We're seeing about 50% of people are actually voting no to a new jail, which is interesting because I talked to a lot of different corrections officers. I talked to the sheriff. I talked to some commissioners that are here, and they're all very for having the tax passed, mainly because they want a new jail so that they have safer spaces for their workers, for their corrections officers. They told me that some of the spaces are really narrow. We've actually gone on a tour twice before of the jail that is behind me right now. And the reason why is because we wanted to get a look for ourselves to see how this was. And some of the people that we spoke with said that the environment inside is pretty sad. It's pretty dull, dark, and that they just hope that eventually this is going to be able to be turned into a new jail at some point, whether that's in a new building or if they're able to get some advancements in the one that's existing.
What do voters there that you've talked to, what are they saying about this? It obviously would cost them some money
what's the feeling
when they go to the store. So what are they saying about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the voters that I've talked to, they're kind of mixed because the ones that took the tour saw for a reason why why they decided are going to be convicted. Ultimately, the reason why some of them are voting no is because they're already spending a lot of money in a lot of different places. For them, it's one more tax that they don't want to have to pay right now. And I mean, it makes sense, especially when you see gas prices and some of the other things. Those were some of the reasons that people gave me.
All righty, Kirsten, thank you so much. Was there anything we didn't ask you that you want to mention? You know, we've been out there covering this forever. We'll spin back to you. But was there anything else that you wanted to hit on before we let you go? Or do you want to just get out of the rain?
No, you're good. We'll be talking to the sheriff and Commissioner Wade as well once we're out here again for the 10 and 11 p.m. shows when we're live back on NBC and CW. So if you want to tune in tonight, we'll give you more details and live reactions.
Yep, and we absolutely will be there. We need the latest on that. Kirsten, thank you so much for that update. We're going to go to another one now. We've learned another race has been called. We're going to go to the 1st Congressional District, the Democratic primary. Now that covers parts of Hamilton, Warren, and Clinton County. We know that Greg Landsman has just won that race. There you go there. Wow, 72% of the vote there. And he was up against Damon Lynch the fifth. Let's see here. He was first elected back in 2022. What we know about his about the competition there, Damon Lynch was a Cincinnati pastor and a community leader, which we've seen. That's a similar background, Lauren. A lot of these candidates, community leader, big roles in where they live, and just everyone who wants to really make an impact here, put their hat in the race. We actually heard Dr. Hannah say that a little bit earlier.
And one thing that we keep seeing in these races that are being called early, it seems like the incumbent or the political heavyweight in each of these races is the one that's winning.
Yes,
all of these
yes.
that are being called are the ones that have the background either as the incumbent or as just the bigger name. And it looks like Greg Landsman was the incumbent here, first elected back in 2022. We saw the same thing with Vivek Ramaswamy kind of getting those big endorsements. And he, of course, that race was called. And then the same, obviously, with Sherrod Brown, who is the much bigger name, the political heavyweight there in the Democratic race for Ohio Senate nomination. So, kind of a pattern that we're seeing with that. Greg Landsman being called as the candidate for U.S. Representative in the 1st District. So that is the Democratic primary for the 1st Congressional District. That covers parts of Hamilton, Warren, and Clinton counties.
Alrighty. And we're going to continue on through the night. We're going to go now to two news reporter, Julian Jackson. He was all day. He was in the Northwest Rec Center earlier today, covering the Montgomery County commission race. He's here now. Julian, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here. Good evening to you.
Happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day to you, right? Just buried the lead there. All right. What can you tell us? What is the latest? What do you have for us?
Well, right now, we just have updated results from Montgomery County Board of Elections. And at this time, if this race was to end today on the Republican ticket. So let me go ahead and give you a little background on that. With this Montgomery County Commissioner's race, we're looking at the Republican ticket. That's our big focus here, because we have 3 candidates that are listed on that ticket, that being Margie Christie, Norman J. Scarce, and then Jordan Wortham. The Democratic incumbent, Carolyn Rice, currently holds a seat. She hopes to hold on to that seat. She's running unopposed, so she's going to move on to November regardless. So right now, if this was to end at this moment, Margie Christie would move on and to race against Carolyn Rice in November.
How close are those numbers right now? I know we have nothing has been finalized or certified, but what are the numbers showing right now?
What we're looking at right now is Margie Christie leading by 426 votes. That is 856. Norman J. Scarce coming in right behind at 430 votes. And Jordan Wortham, we reached out to him for previews to see what he was all about and what he stood for in this election. And we were unable to get in contact with him, but he's still pulling votes right now at 379. So these margins you're seeing seem much larger for Margie Christie at this time, but it's not final yet.
To get to office here?
So, I mean, that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that too, because in the time that I was able to sit down and get to know these candidates, Margie Christie's looking at more transparency. She wants people to know where their money's going, how it's being spent, and she says that business owners and citizens, everyday people that she talked to, want to know that their money is working as hard for them as they work to earn it. She stands on a platform of not being a politician as usual and kind of breaking up that norm a little bit and sharing with people and bringing everybody to the table and sharing what needs to happen to make something work. On the other hand, though, I will tell you that Norman Scarce, when I spoke with him, he was saying that he has an issue with inside millage. So let me tell you what that means.
Yeah.
Inside millage is taxation, many of the times on property taxes and things of that sort. But the commission can fluctuate and move your taxes around, usually up, not down. And so he's running on a campaign of transparency for inside millage. He wants people to know that, hey, if this is a proposal we're making and we want to raise your taxes for A, B, or C, he wants people to be able to vote on that. There should be a vote. Right now, inside millage in the state of Ohio, there's no vote for that. So your taxes can fluctuate up or down, usually up, as I said, and you probably want to know if you're going to have more money coming out of your check.
Yeah.
Julian, I know you've been covering this race for a while. Did you get any idea as to whether there was a front runner or a favorite in the race, or did it seem like they were all equally well known and supported?
To me, and because it's more of an opinionated type, I got no feel. There was nothing that said, hey, this person really seems to know what they're doing. I can tell you that Margie Christie she's currently retired. She is a former executive director for Dayton Right to Life. And in her time, she said that she spent a lot of time managing money. She had a lot of questions to answer. If someone wanted to know how's this money being spent or where's this money going, she had to have a paper trail for that. She wanted to be able to be transparent with people who were helping that organization she was working with move forward. So you can't just hide behind closed doors and say, hey, nope, you don't need to know where that money's going because then your funding would stop. Well, that's not how the Montgomery County Commission works. And oftentimes, Norman Scarce tells me, yes, we know that governments need money to run, but it's not crazy to think we should be sharing, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing before actually doing it.
All right, Julian, thank you so much for coming on and breaking that down for us. We're going to keep our eye on several other races, several other updates as we make our way through to the polls for the special election coverage. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, we are keeping things moving. We are keeping things rolling with this coverage. We're going to go now to 2 News reporter Morgan Anderson. She is currently live at the First Christian Church. She has the latest on the Clark Shawnee school levy. There she is, nice and dry in the car. I'm happy you guys are staying out of the rain. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. We know you've been out there all day. So tell us, what is on the ballot for the Clark Shawnee School District? What is going on there?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Yeah, appreciate it. So what we have for voters in the Clark Shawnee School District is they're voting on a 1% income tax levy. Now, I'll make note that this is an earned income tax levy, meaning this would only apply to those who earn a wage or have self-employment income. So this would not apply to those that have fixed wages, such as like pension, retirement, disability, Social Security, those items. Those would not be impacted. That would be considered a traditional income tax. This would merely be an earned income tax.
So Morgan, what does this 1% earned incomes tax levy entail exactly?
Yeah, so as I said, it would be that 1% earned income tax. Now, this would not be traditional, so anything that is fixed, it would not apply to. So as part of that 1% earned income tax, it would take 1% out of someone's yearly salary. So when we spoke to the superintendent at Clark Shawnee Local Schools, they said that they intentionally picked the earned income tax over a traditional just because they know they have a lot of older folks in their community. And with that being said, with property taxes being higher in the area, they felt that an earned income tax felt most appropriate because a lot of their citizens in the community already pay high property taxes.
Yeah, Morgan, we actually have that graphic up. We're looking at it right now. It looks like around 35% of that vote, that yes vote, 35% of that was yes with around 202 votes. No, that was 65% of the vote with 392. So that does sound on par with exactly what you are saying.
Yeah.
So tell us, go ahead, Jack. We're going to bring in 2 News anchor. Jack Pohl is joining us tonight. He's going to.
Yeah, see, we played tag team there with Lauren Wood. I said, tag, how are you doing? It is good to see you, Morgan. You've been
dry.
That's what I've been
well,
saying
it's
all
funny
night.
because I saw you in your car and I'm like, okay, this is great. This is a smart one. Earlier you were out in the rain and then the next live shot at 5 o'clock you were inside. I said, that's a smart
to
reporter.
stay drive.
So
I have been training. We're like, we learned our lesson at the 4 o'clock. We're going inside.
Okay.
Well, we were looking at the graphic earlier to get back on topic here a little bit, and it looks not so good for this passing. So the $1 million question up there is obviously what happens if indeed it does fail, and right now you would think it would be a miracle for that to pass.
Yeah, so tonight at 10 and 11, we're going to have live reaction from the Clark Shawnee Superintendent, Mr. Brian Kuhn. But as of right now, when I talked to him last week, here are some items that if this were to fail, like we are on the projection that we are right now, it'll then go on to our November ballot. And let's say if it were to fail then, starting March 1st of 2027, non-necessary items for a school district budget at Clark Shawnee would be cut. So what would that include? That would include busing for high school students. That would include all extracurriculars. It would include all athletics as well as many more. We're talking theater, the arts, you name it, that would all cease to be continue. And so when I spoke to the superintendent, he said a lot of our school district thrives off of extracurriculars such as those. And so he said he would hate to see this fail. But if that is the projection that we are on for tonight, that is a very grave reality.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, when you hear things, it's emotional when you hear things about extracurricular activities. I mean, I covered high school sports for over 30 years in the Miami Valley, and it's not just it's not just a school issue, it's a community issue as well. But the community must support issues like this. So who else have you talked to about this? You talked about the superintendent and maybe those opposed as to, I guess, if things cost too much, they just cost too much.
Yeah.
For sure. And you know what? You don't need a reporter on TV to tell you that things are expensive right now. You just don't. And so when I talk to folks in the community, here's a common theme I was getting in. And I think this is something that 2 News we're going to need to look into. Property taxes in the Clark Shawnee community. When I was talking to folks, property taxes seem to be extremely high compared to the property values that they are being placed on. Because the Clark Shawnee School District is absorbing so much of the city of Springfield and its outskirts, people are saying our property taxes are getting so high. As much as we want to vote yes for an earned income tax levy like this, it's just not feasible. They've been pushed too far in terms of expenses. And so it's not a matter of we don't want to support the children, is what those opposed say. Right. It's just we are at our breaking point, with everything being expensive. But at the same time, those in favor say, you know what? When my kids were in school, people voted yes for them. And so now I'm going to do it for them. So, you can't help but see it from both sides. Yeah. This is a tough one.
And, you're right about that because in some ways, Alexis, you can chime in on this as well. There really is no bad guy in this. These are very tough decisions. And some of these homeowners, this isn't about, I don't care. This is, I can't afford. And then the school district isn't about, we're trying to get as much money from you can. It's we need this money to present these programs. So it's very easy to see both sides of this issue, and that's what makes it so difficult and really so heated inside of a community.
1,000%. And when I spoke to Superintendent Brian Kuhn with Clark Shawnee, he told me that only 32% of the school district's funding comes from the state, and they tell me that year over year that number is decreasing. Again, because the community of Clark Shawnee has such high property values. Right. He said that to the state, it looks like they are a wealthier community. And so thus the need for an earned income tax levy. Right. So like you said, Jack, there's no necessarily bad guy. It's just tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on again. Happy you were staying dry. Thank you for breaking that down for us. We're going to have the latest on election coverage as we move through the night. Thanks so much. Be careful out there. Okay, so we are going to turn now to some school issues for you, okay? So let's come talk about what's happening over in Kettering. So on this election day, those residents are asking to find a bond issue on that ballot that will essentially shape the future of those city schools. So if passed, it will allow the district to renovate and build new buildings on campus. So listen to this. The issue is for $5.93 million. That makes up an estimated cost of $17.30 a month per $100,000 value of a home. Take a look at this here. Jack, I'll let you take that away on the screen.
Well, again, this is very similar to the issue Morgan was talking about up there, but this is talking about building schools and really getting them up to date, and also building another middle school. So this was a big topic, and Kettering is one of the largest, if not at times the largest school district in the Dayton area. So I am not overly surprised, although that's still fairly close. As of right now, I mean, it's just a 201 vote difference.
So look at this.
We're going to wait on this. We're going to wait on this before this is much closer than the previous issue we looked at with Shawnee. So at 57%, yes, this is about kids. This isn't about extracurricular activities. This is about the actual building that every single kid, whether you play football or whether you are in the band or whether you are an honors student, whatever it is you may be, it's about the building you go to. So I think it's a little bit of an easier sell, and with so many families that have children that go in this school district, I'm not too surprised about this one. But I will say, it's not over just yet.
No had 43% of the vote. Jack talked about that. Good math on that, Jack. Around the 200 or so vote different. 801 votes for yes, 602 for no's. That's the start of it. Let's move on to Jefferson Township. Let's take a look here. So local school district there has faced significant financial challenges, we know, for more than the past 2 decades, at least, due to that declining tax base, reduced corporate revenue, falling enrollment, and limited operating resources within the county. Let's take a look at this. This is this ballot for the additional 1.25% income tax on current expenses. We know that vote for yes is currently at 46 with around 110 votes, and no, 54% votes, 131. Here's the reverse of kind of what we just saw here, Jack, a little bit ago over in Kettering.
Yeah, and again, you've got a decent-sized school district, and this is another one of those that it obviously is going to come down to the wire, because this could still flip. Before the end,
and these are unconfirmed also, by the way. We want to make sure that we have that.
These just give us kind of like a good thumbnail sketch of just how close races are, and some closer than others. But the levy itself stabilizes operations, protects local control, and allows continued progress for students and community through more staffing, academic support, student services, and such. STEM learning and career readiness pathways. These are all hot topics for especially young families. And Jefferson Township, it's the whole school district. The whole Jefferson Township local school district. So again, when you get emotional items, when you have a child, I put
all
two
items
kids
are emotional
through.
items.
You want as many opportunities as possible, because not every kid fits the same mold, and not every kid's going to be an athlete, not every kid's going to be a musician, not every kid's going to be an honors student. They're all going to take different pathways, and the more your school offers, the better off you are.
And it's also about what the levy covers. If we haven't been clear on that, it covers all things. So those school operations that Jack is talking about, some of the student support salaries, benefits, which make up about 84% of the district budget. I did not realize it was that much. But that's that support that you were talking about, teachers, staff, and classroom stability. That's another key one, Jack. And you mentioned you did this twice.
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, you got to be fair to the people opposed to it, because, especially these issues seem so much tougher this election for anyone with school levies, bond issues, whatever it may be. Because money is tight. I mean, gas prices are right around $5. I mean, the grocery store prices, our electric bills.
It's anywhere you look, really, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a single thing right now that costs less than it did whenever ago. So things are really, a week ago, it feels like.
Yeah.
But so when you have that climate, you can't blame these people, because at the end of the day, you got to be able to pay your mortgage. You got to be able to pay your car payment. You got to be able to put food on the table. So, I want to represent both sides of this. We're not taking sides, but I understand the emotional connection and what you would want for your children, which anyone with a child will tell you they want the best for their children, the most opportunity. And then the other guy's like, well, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but I also need gas money to get to work. So I understand that as well. These are tough choices, and that's why we put them on votes, and that's why communities decide. And what the community says, that's what America's all about. Democracy, they will go to the polls. Those that go to the polls, they decide. and we figure it out from there.
And on our final look at schools and these levies, let's turn to Northridge Local Schools Permanent Improvement Levy. So Northridge Local School District is looking for an additional 2.2 mils on the general permanent improvements over a continuing period of time. So that's what we're seeing here. We know Yes currently has 44% of the vote still incoming. Not a lot, not even in the triple digits yet. But this is just another issue. Again, Jack has been saying it all night. We're going to have to really wait and see because anything could turn. This could go either way.
I mean,
not a lot of votes.
Shawnee was the one that seemed to be pretty set. I mean, it'd be a radical finish for that to come through. But these other ones, I mean, 56 to 44 right now. Yes and no. Not too many. Not a huge bunch of data that has been in yet, so we'll wait and see what happens. But initial response, this is
what we're seeing
early on. We're seeing, but again, I think it all goes back to a very tight economy that we're in, and I don't think these are easy decisions for anybody. And I'm sure there are people going to the polls that wish they could vote yes, and just. At the end of the, your decisions start with your family or yourself. Even if you live alone, it doesn't matter. That's your family.
Yep.
And if you're like, well, I wish I could afford it, but I can't. So, you may want a bigger house, but if you can't afford it, you don't get it. Doesn't mean that bigger house isn't nicer. It just means you can't afford it. So I get it from both ends, which makes these issues so important and so interesting to watch as they unfold, because it's those communities, the people that live there, the people that matter,
that will feel it.
They're the ones making the decision.
Now, a little bit about this bond levy that is on the ballot for today. It actually passed originally back in 2002, and it did do a lot for the school district. It allowed them to build a new stadium. They got a new middle school gym, as well as complete additional renovations that will expire allegedly by the end of 2026. So because of the 25 years of that disciplined bond debt collection, as well as other things like, fiscal stewardship, the district now has enough bond reserves to cover that 2026 bond payments in full. But what does that mean for you as the voter, as the resident, as the person who's Jack's talking about using the emotional side of this to decide what they want to do next? That means that bond millage in 2.4 mils will not be collected. I've actually learned a lot about mills and how they work, Jack, over the course of tonight, really, truthfully. So
very important things, and you mentioned the expiring in 2026. I mean, that's this year.
That's this year. So that's another reason why this is super key.
These are top of mind issues.
For sure. Okay. So we are now going to take a break. I believe we are going to take a break at 8:57. When we get back, we are going to have more coverage for you on this Election Night, Tuesday, May 5th. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the polls. Just a minute after 9 o'clock, 9:01. We are moving into our third acceptance speech for the night. Welcome back. I'm Alexis Bellamy. I'm joined by Jack Pohl. We had Lauren Wood a little bit ago. We'll shuffle them out a little bit. It's lots of familiar faces tonight. So going to Amy Acton. She just won the Democratic candidate for Ohio governor. And Jack, you actually got a chance to watch a little bit, didn't you?
I did. I watched a little bit of her acceptance, and we're going to show it here in just a minute. But just as a preview, and I just want to mention this because one thing it is exciting about politicians, and I don't care what side you're on, left, right, middle, whoever you vote, however you vote, it is wonderful to see the passion that these people have.
For sure.
And you see it on display more than ever in their acceptance speeches. Now, even
that's
in
where
some,
they can show it, I feel, the most.
even in some concession speeches, you'll see some pretty good passion, but Amy delivers. And if we're showing what this whole thing, right, Matt?
Yep.
We got this whole thing. So as you watch this, just keep in mind, think about months of hard work, months of these people spending, trying
Jack, you're making it sound like a sport at the end of it.
Right, preparing and hitting the campaign trail. Now, she basically was unopposed, so I imagine she's this happy on tonight where it was pretty much a slam dunk.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what would happen in November if she won, but anyway, it's a good speech.
Here we are. Take us into it, Matt.
Hello. Oh, I love you too. Oh my goodness. Thank you, everyone. This is such a moment to be with you. I was overwhelmed seeing so many faces from so many parts of my life here. I'm just honored that you would come and be with us tonight. So thank you. So, thanks to your vote and your tremendous support, I am so honored to be the Democratic candidate for governor of the great state of Ohio. And I am a doctor. I am not a politician. But I am a lifelong public servant who has been fighting for Ohioans my entire career. Now, I turned 60 this year, and we're still here, and it feels pretty incredible to be standing here today. I was, as you heard, once a little kid growing up in Youngstown, and I did have a pretty rough childhood. My brother and I experienced a lot of abuse and neglect. I was a frequent flyer in children's services, and my brother and I moved countless times. We even ended up in a tent in the middle of winter. And when you're a kid growing up in a difficult situation, you notice when people look the other way. But more importantly, it is the people who didn't look the other way, like a couple who would pull my brother and I up on their front porch, walking on the north side of Youngstown, and feed us breakfast because they knew we were hungry. And at the age of 12, and you don't forget those people, and it's a big theme of everything I do. At the age of 12, my brother and I were actually removed from that situation, but I was haunted by the kids I left behind, who were just as smart and just as nice, but we could watch our lives go different ways. And that is why I have spent my entire career not looking the other way and fighting for the people of Ohio. You see, I am running for governor because people in this state are struggling. They are doing everything right. They're working harder than they ever have, but there is no more breathing room. They're struggling with the cost of everyday life. And I refuse to look the other way. We are refusing to look the other way when bad actors and special interests keep taking this state backwards on every single measure. It is time for a change in Ohio. It is time for a change in our state. Yeah. Yes. Over the last 2.5 years, we've been traveling everywhere in this state. Quite frankly, I've been going to places Dems haven't been in a while. We've been out in our Jeep, and we've been seen out in our Jeep, and we've been listening deeply to Ohioans who have been sharing their stories, sharing their hopes and dreams, sharing what keeps them up at night. It has been an honor, truly an honor, to hear your stories. Very early on in this journey, I met a mom in Clermont County, so Clermont County right outside of Cincinnati. She's young, she's at the beginning of her career. She's working. A little bit of student loan debt, you're at the beginning of your career, you're not making that much. Her husband, same thing. They wanted to buy a house, and we know rent right now in this state is taking 50% of people's income, but they wanted a house. It's the dream. They stretched, and they buy the house. And then they have kids, except that they have premature twins. The kids are doing better. They have some health issues, but they are $300,000 in medical debt. And by the way, we're doing something about that when I am governor. And so now, we have things we can do, but they don't have a program there in Clermont, so they're paying on it. And then it's the groceries going up, and it's the gas. We all felt it go over $5, right? Her electric bill goes up. Her property taxes go up because we're not fully funding the local funds. And then, because we are not fully funding the bipartisan funding plan we finally had to be constitutional for our public schools, they cut back her kindergarten program. So now, moms, everyone, dads, you're hearing this, she's looking for childcare. But childcare right now in Ohio costs $25,000 a year for 2 kids on average. And 40% of Ohioans don't even have the option. This is what I am talking about. They are doing every single thing right, but it doesn't add up. And that is why we're fighting to help make Ohio affordable again. So, I know what it is like to struggle, and Ohioans need somebody fighting for them, not the self-funding billionaires and special interests. And that is why we are fighting. We're fighting to make Ohio affordable again. We are fighting. We are fighting to end the corruption in this state house that has held us back for far too long. We are fighting to save our public schools and our libraries and all the things that we hold dear. But above all, we are fighting to build an Ohio where everyone gets a fair shot. It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard. It is time to put working families, Ohio's families, first. See, I believe in an Ohio where you live or wherever you do what you do, that whether you're a school bus driver in Cincinnati, whether you're a farmer in Shelby County, all people I've talked to, whether you're a union steelworker in Youngstown, where my grandfather was a union steelworker in Youngstown, you should be able to afford a good life. And that is why, as governor, I am going to deliver a working families tax cut. We are going to deliver programs to lower our health care costs. Every one of us is one health care emergency away from losing everything we've worked for our whole lives, and we are going to fight for those public schools. We are fighting. Now, the contrast in this race couldn't be more clear. All right, it couldn't be, could it? I know, you're like, you can't make this up, right? My opponent says Medicaid and Medicare are mistakes. He said more. He wants to dismantle them. And he's brought up Social Security. As Ohio's governor, I will fight to protect Medicaid and ensure that everyone in Ohio has access to quality health care, affordable health care. We all deserve the right to health care. My opponent is doubling down on policies that are bankrupting Ohio schools. And as governor, I will fully fund our schools and give our kids the 21st century education that allows them to reach their full potential. This is what I benefited from. Public schools and libraries saved my life as a kid. We are fighting this one. And it is a unifying issue, by the way. Now, my opponent, he says he doesn't care about the corruption at the State House. I guess he picked a running mate that kind of architected everything when it took us back. But my lieutenant governor, Mr. David Pepper, also known as Dr. Pepper lately, he and I, we've got some plans. We are going to crack down on that corruption, and we're going to put the needs of working families, their needs, over the wants of billionaires. That's what we're going to do. My opponent says people are lazy and mediocre and not working hard enough. He does. Well, that is not the Ohioans that I know. I know it's not the Ohioans that you know. We are all working harder than ever. It doesn't add up, and that's why I will fight for good jobs and workforce training, and I am going to be a champion for small businesses in Ohio. We've got to get this right. And yes, you can't always make this up. Mr. Ramaswamy says that Ohio isn't the best state in the country. Let me be clear. When I am governor of the great state of Ohio, the entire country is going to know about how great we are. We're leaving no doubt. Now, trust is everything. Trust is everything. I listen to people every day. I've been on the road again 2.5 years. Trust. I am so honored to have earned the trust of Ohioans and your trust. I've stood up when it mattered most, and I will always, always stand up for Ohioans. I will always do this. Do you know who Ohioans can't trust? When we face the really, really hard issues of working families, it is that guy who flies around Ohio in his corporate jet because he can't be bothered to drive the 90 minutes on like I-71. It is the guy who treats Ohio like a flyover state. And when you are looking at a state from 30,000 feet, my opponent cannot possibly see the struggles and the stories that I am hearing on the road. Vivek Ramaswamy isn't just out of touch. He is out for himself. That is what is happening here. I need you to know that I love Ohio. I love this state. It has given me the opportunity of a lifetime, coming from one where I know it might not have gone this way. When you love Ohio, you do not move your business to Texas before running for governor. You do not tell Ohioans that affordability is a buzzword, and you do not pitch tax schemes that line the pockets of billionaires while raising costs for the rest of us. I am an Ohio girl through and through. This is my home, this is my state, and if it wasn't for the kindness of the people of this state, I wouldn't be here, and I want every single kid in this state to have the opportunities I have had. Growing up in Youngstown, we didn't know what party you were. We knew what union you were in. We knew what food you made from the country you came from. And we knew that people and your neighbors would always have your back. There was a sense of justice that got steeped in me. Growing up in Youngstown, I learned what it was like to feel invisible. I would not be standing here today if it weren't for the people who refused to look the other way. And I'm going to be asking a lot of you and us to refuse to look the other way while my brother and I were suffering, while we see suffering in the state. Now, I am a scrappy kid from Youngstown, make no mistake, and scrappy kids never back down from a fight. Never. Yeah. Because that's what we have on our hands. We have a fight, and this isn't about political party, guys. It's not about that anymore. It is about extreme wealth, power, ideology, special interests against everyone else. It's what David wrote about in his book, these playbooks being shoved through these state houses. I'm here tonight because we are seeing a people-powered grassroots campaign of Ohioans who all believe it's time for a change. We're seeing record numbers of people everywhere we go in the state. It does not know party. And everyone is ready for us to turn this around. And that's why we need all of you in this fight. In November, we are going to link arms. This movement energy, guys, record numbers of individuals giving to this campaign, crashing the Secretary of State website. We are going to literally link arms, and we are going to tell Mr. Ramaswamy in no uncertain terms, you cannot buy this state. You cannot buy Ohio. You can't buy this state. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. We can't let that happen happen because we won't let it happen. So you will see me fight and you will see me be tough, and I will address endless issues as your governor. But what you will never, ever see me do is pit us against one another. Everywhere I go in this state, thank you. Everywhere I go, and my team will tell you this, in this state, people are exhausted. They are exhausted by the hate and the chaos and the vitriol. They are longing for something. They are longing for public servants again who actually solve problems instead of making problems. I don't think that's too much to ask for. We want public servants. We are exhausted from being asked to not see what we can plainly witness with our own eyes. Together, we must all have the courage to refuse to look the other way at what we're watching. You see, they keep mistaking kindness for weakness, and I think that's a big, big mistake. Kindness isn't weakness. Kindness is a fierce thing. It is a fierce commitment to justice and to seeing the humanity in one another. That is what we're fighting for above everything else. We cannot give up on one another. And I say this to you, make room. We've got to heal this thing. We've got to have a way for people to come back. We cannot give up on one another. We cannot give up on this state. And I will never, ever give up on Ohio. I will never give up. So, I believe in the promise of this great state, and we are going to build an Ohio where everyone gets a fair shot. And every kid like me has the opportunity to reach their full potential. And when they do, they give their gifts back, and it spreads, and all boats rise. Together, we're going to make Ohio affordable so that we can pursue our dreams again, so that we can live a good life, so that we can age in place with dignity, and that we can be the community we all long to be. I am so humbled to be the Democratic nominee for governor of Ohio. It is unbelievable. I want to thank everyone here, because each and every one of you has been a part of this journey. You have let us into your lives. You have showed us unwavering support, and I know we're just beginning. But I want to share some gratitude here to everybody here today, coming out in the rain, and those who are watching us here at home, thank you. To my incredible husband, Eric Acton. Many of you may know my husband is a 43-year public school, elementary school teacher and a coach. And at the same school he went to since he was 4 years old, and his mom still lives down the street. I want to just give my gratitude to our family, our kids, our grandkids now, and to a lifetime of friends and colleagues who are here. It's so many chapters of my life in this room. And finally, to David Pepper, my most amazing and talented running mate and reason I can do all of this. To Alana, I welcome this journey we're all taking together. And to my I have an amazing team. They are scrappy, guys. We've been fighting a lot of fights over a year and a half. We've done some things people might not have expected. And I just want to thank my team from the bottom of my heart. They give me so much to be able to do what I do. And finally, thank you. To all the Ohioans out there who may be feeling invisible or alone, my promise to you is this: no one will ever, ever be invisible to me. No one will be invisible to me in this state. Ohioans, everyone, this is our moment. Ohio is in play. I believe in the promise of this state. I see the dream of a new sun rising. I always think about our state seal, and you always watch that sun, and you might be seeing it on. That sun is rising in Ohio, and I believe in the promise. I believe it is time for a change, and Ohioans everywhere are moving in a movement, and we are going to create our future together. I need you to help me spread this word. Keep joining this fight, actonforgovernor.com, and I need you to know I will be fighting with you every step of the way. Thank you, everyone. Let's go do it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that was high energy.
Wow.
That was high energy from Dr.
What'd I tell
Amy
ya?
Acton, Democratic. No, Jackie, you were right. A gubernatorial candidate for Ohio governor. She had Jack, you could not have. You were exactly right. She had a lot of energy in that speech. She touted her running mate. Let's see, she really went after Ramaswamy. She called him directly out of touch, out for himself. It was really nice hearing a little bit more about herself and how she grew up and some of the ways that she feels like she is different from Ramaswamy. And those are just the things that I grabbed. We're going to bring in expert Dr. Lee Hanna here to give his professional breakdown of this. Now,
Doc, my first question about this, when you watch an emotional speech, right till the very end, when of course you want to leave them, how important is that when you are starting now basically in earnest to win the governor's office?
Yeah. I mean, it's a strong first impression, and for a lot of folks, they'll tune in today because they're like, oh yeah, I saw people in the I voted sticker. Like, what are these folks about? They may not be back until October, right? Yeah. So it is important to have an acceptance speech that can capture people. That can make somebody say, I want to go vote for her or him. And so I do think that this first night is important for these candidates, especially when neither has been around. You know, Sherrod Brown, John Husted, it's not their first rodeo. But with these two candidates, this is kind of an introduction here.
Yeah, and it is exciting. And I also wonder, I mean, is this word for word ready to go? I mean, how often do they practice a speech like, I mean, I'd like to go behind the curtains a little bit because, you know, we're a long way from November, so a lot's going to happen between now and then. Yeah. But just, you know, maybe touch on the surface of, is this something where we're going to hit this hard and we're going to hit that hard? Or how much of it is just emotion and she's going for it?
Yeah, that is a great question. My guess is there's some sense of like a flow or an outline, but I think all these candidates seem to be pretty comfortable on the stump, so they're going to riff, you know, once they get there, but they're going to try to hit on those points. I think you're certainly looking for a slogan, you're looking for a label for your opponent that sticks. You know, it's ugly, but that is the game. You want. So she wants people to think Ramaswamy is, you know, effectively like a carpetbagger, right? He's not really here. He's this wealthy guy who's just kind of airdropped in to take his claim to the throne, right?
Right.
And Ramaswamy is going to, we saw him kind of paint her as someone that when the going got tough, she quit, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the contrast that they're painting tonight. If those frames stick, they'll keep driving it home. But, you know, you're also going to see them get tied to the national party and in different ways. So they'll both be carrying some of the baggage for their national party's reputations.
I'm curious. I know it's the year 2026.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really I thought. But what are some of the differences when you have a woman running? Is there any extra pressure? Is there any extra hurdles that she, even in this day and age, may have to cross? Still, and a lot of times, politically speaking, it's a male-dominated field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's certainly double standards that women face in this field, especially just appearance and criticisms there. But often things like anger that are kind of coded in a masculine way, women take on more baggage for showing anger or, you know, for showing emotion. And, you know, it's a terrible double standard. There's a lot of work on this of sociologists and political scientists. And yeah, she will definitely have to fight that in some ways. And, you know, Ramaswamy's a person of color. So he will have his challenges too.
Right. And I was going to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we let you go, we have a few seconds. Was there anything else that we did not ask you that you wanted to touch on, Dr. Hanna?
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I think, nothing really like comes to mind, but I think the big thing will be, you know, how they pivot. And then also, our Senate candidates and our governor's candidates, they should be running hand in glove. Okay. So how good are Husted and Ramaswamy going to be working together as they kind of make a run on the state? I think Brown and Acton have a closer relationship than Ramaswamy and Husted, but I think that will be important as they move forward as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dr. Hanna, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jack, thanks for hanging in there with me. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to wrap things up with our exclusive To the Polls coverage in just a little bit at 9:28. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Polls at 9:31. You guys did a series of coverage on election night, brought you all of the updates, several acceptance speeches, but we've got plenty more to go now. Back now, Alexis Bellamy. I'm here with 2 News anchor Jack Pohl. We're going to jump right into things. Jack, how's the night been for you? Learned a lot?
I think it's been an exciting night. You know, I guess what they would say, and me and Evan were just talking about during the commercial break, but not a lot of big surprises tonight.
Sure.
I think that's what came to me. But and me and the doc were talking about earlier is what they would say in gambling field, it was chalk. You know, it was kind of things are happening the way we thought they would happen.
What that means,
So that's what it means. That it just means that there wasn't some big huge surprises tonight.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Now, maybe not so much in the school issues because I don't know what was favored to win that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the governor races and Senate and things like that, all seem to be, which leads us into Evan.
Which leads us into Evan perfectly. The Ohio Senate primary was underway tonight, setting up those candidates that we're looking forward to on the stage in November. So we heard from Sherrod Brown earlier tonight. We know that John Husted was running unopposed. But Evan, was there any doubt that Brown was going to take this here tonight?
No, unfortunately, I think, like Jack was saying, we pretty much all expected that Sherrod Brown was going to end up back on the ticket this November. I've had a chance to look over a lot of the results in Ohio. Pretty much every single county in Ohio favored Sherrod Brown by between 85 and 90%.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. That
was a leap. Yeah.
You think now, and maybe it's from what people you talked to about this, and certainly Sherrod Brown himself, his experience. I mean, this isn't his first rodeo. He knows how to get through these things. He knows how to navigate these things, and that's obviously a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. Obviously, name recognition, experience were easily some of the biggest players here. He was heavy on attacking John Husted, especially in his victory speech. Yeah, you can see right here, 90% to 10%.
Talk about this, Evan.
So, again, just like we were talking about, name recognition and experience. Sherrod Brown has been in politics for over 20 years at this point. Wow. Like Jack said, he knows how the system works. This is not his first rodeo with the race. Obviously, he was beat out by Bernie Moreno in 2024, but this was an absolute landslide victory for him.
We saw that 90% to that 10%, but let's go back just a little bit and talk about some of the differences there between the candidates here and their backgrounds, Evan.
So, I mean, we've already heard a lot about Sherrod Brown.
Yeah,
Speaking with Ron Kincaid, I think some of the biggest differences were Kincaid had a lot of very, very specific policies and plans that he had. He was not super heavy on attacking Sherrod Brown or John Husted, and I'm not saying whether that hurt or helped his campaign, but I think there was definitely a difference in messaging between the two there.
Well, I'll say this about that, just to kind of, you knew it, and I knew it, and the doc would have told you, he was talking about it earlier today, that certainly he knew that he had no chance or unbelievably little chance. So you wonder if this is a political exercise, setting the ground floor, testing the waters, or something like that. Because these are intelligent people that run for office. Well, they know,
what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They know what they're up against, and they know what the odds are. So I'm not 100% sure that this wasn't just hey, I'm going to get out there, swing and get my message, and all of a sudden his name is more well known with whatever next political step he takes.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. If this was a test run, I'd say this was a pretty solid test run.
I would agree with you.
Ron. 10% of the overall vote when you have zero political experience.
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
no name recognition.
Yeah.
No name recognition. He had a background in political advocacy and whatnot, but he had held no public office beforehand. And for a U.S. Senate race, I'd say that was a
too
pretty
bad.
good run on his
Yeah,
part.
because even, switching gears a little bit, even
Right.
Amy Acton has a name. I mean,
Sure.
people have heard of Amy Acton. I mean, there is some name recognition to that. And as silly as that sounds, but there's a reason, like this starting in whatever, August or September, that you're going to see signs everywhere, signs with names on it, because it's all about name recognition. And when people go to the polls and they don't know who's what, they're going to vote for the name that rings a bell, whether they know anything about
That's
them or
true.
not. That happens a lot. So there's a method to that madness. It's very old school
A brand
politics.
that goes along with the name, if you will.
Correct. Exactly.
Evan, last thing, affordability was something that both candidates touched on, were campaigning on. For the people who did not hear from Brown, what are the fixes to that, to the affordability issue, you think?
I know something that Brown, again, emphasized even more during his victory speech. He believes that a lot of the politicians in Washington right now aren't really focusing on the domestic front. They're being very heavy on foreign policy right now, especially with the Iran war that's going on right now. And essentially, he was just saying that there needs to be more attention paid to the affordability crisis that we're seeing. He placed heavy emphasis on data centers, gas prices, and the likes of that we're seeing a lot of trickle-down effects in rising costs.
Well, Evan, let me ask you, very early, comes off this win. So what are his chances in November? Does it feel like it could be a tight race? Is he the, how does he feel coming out of it, or what's your sense coming out of it?
If I were Sherrod Brown, something that really stuck out to me is that there don't seem to be really a lot of differences between this run and his failed run in 2024 against Bernie Moreno, which is unfortunate for him, because honestly, I feel that would have helped his case greatly if he were to say, this is something that I'm doing different this time, and this is why I
that's
won't
candid.
lose this
I like
November.
that. So,
Yeah.
well, we'll see. I mean, the differences, prices have gone higher, so maybe the message will be a little louder.
All right, Jack, Evan, thank you so much for that. We're going to jump out of this. Evan, thank you so much. Okay, so let's take things from the top now. We're going to wind things down and go through the things that we already know here. We're going to show you some information. Let's start with what we know, the Ohio governor's race, the Republican primary here. Vivek Ramaswamy took that. Here's those results from that. He had around 82% of the vote, again, unconfirmed until tomorrow. But just looking at those differences in numbers, Jack, more than 425,000 to
exactly what everyone was
93,000.
expecting,
Exactly
and I mean, we have seen some of the largest differential numbers. I mean, maybe the primaries can be that way, but it is a staggering.
This one for sure.
It's staggering the differential, 82 to 18%.
But we also knew coming in Ramaswamy with that endorsement from President Trump.
From President Trump,
this was
that
going
it
to
was
make
going to
things
be
look a little bit differently already.
Right.
In this case. But this is what we can look forward to here in November. Ramaswamy and Dr. Amy Acton, excuse me, I almost forgot her name. Okay, Jack, I'll let you take this away. Move on to the Senate race now.
Well, we just talked to Evan about this, and again, I think it goes back to experience, and not just a little experience, but lifelong experience. I mean, that makes a big difference. And let's be honest, Ron Kincaid had no experience in public office. So this was
brand
really,
name
I mean,
recognition was the big
when you're
one here.
dipping your toe in the water, you kind of don't want to do it against a guy with the credentials that Sherrod Brown has. So that very much like Ramaswamy was going to be a slam dunk, and we all knew that. That's why you didn't see 1,000 signs in everyone's yards all over the city. That's why you didn't see 1,000 commercials every 5 minutes. It was, why waste the money?
Yep.
We're going to win this. We're going to win it big, and we're going to move on. This was a necessary step, but in some ways it was academic. It was just, we knew this was going to happen.
And in the 1st congressional district now, Republican primary, this covered parts of Hamilton, Warren, and Clinton County. In this race, Holly Adams, Eric Conroy, and we know Stephen Urbeck actually dropped out of this race, yesterday, I believe, Jack,
Correct.
was.
Yes. So at least the voters knew.
Yeah, ahead of time. And we knew that coming in that any votes going towards him would not be counted. But here's where we are right now. Conroy with around 70% of the votes. Holly Adams not even in a close second with 21%.
Right.
And then, of course, Urbeck with
That's the theme of the night, isn't it?
It is.
We'll look back on this May primary and we'll say, blowouts. Like in sports, you don't see a lot of, as they would say, good games. Nothing too close. So we move on.
And now in race number 3, 1st Congressional District, Democratic primary. This also covered those parts of Hamilton, Warren, and Clayton. We called this a little bit ago with Greg Landsman winning this one around 72%, more than 17,000 votes there. Another big gap. We can't touch on that enough, how we are going to be seeing the differences in some of these numbers.
Yeah, and I'll point out that that's fine. You know what I mean? It still needs to be done. Voters need to be heard, and they were heard. I mean, they certainly knew who they wanted to vote for, and
for sure.
Whether it be, that's why they play the game. So not a lot of close races, to be sure, for that 1st district, and but we've seen that across the board tonight, and in almost every run outside of the school issues.
Yep, which are major again. In the 8th Congressional District now, Democratic primary. Now this encompasses 5 counties here in Southwest and Western Ohio.
Right.
They include Butler, Darke, Preble counties, and portions of Hamilton and Miami counties. So former House Speaker John Boehner held the seat from 1991 to 2015. Wow. Okay, and then he's up against Vanessa Enoch and Medeiros Grant. Another difference in votes there, 75% to 25% there in the Democratic primary. Still unofficial, waiting to hear the latest. So Enoch, actually a journalist and a businesswoman. She's challenged Davidson actually in previous elections now. Grant, a small business owner, and Jack, you may know this, care about this. He actually was he played football at Ware State, Ball State.
There you go. D1 football player. Maction. So there you go.
Big deal there. So we know the winner here faces incumbent Warren Davidson in November.
Been a lot of football players, by the way, or former athletes get into politics and do quite well.
That's new to me.
It was Ford at Michigan, right? Yeah. Gerald Ford was a president, played
Dr. Hannah giving us commentary.
Yeah, well, if I got him sitting there, that's my fact. I don't need to Google. I can the Dr. Hannah. That's the next best thing to Googling right there. We have any other president play D1 football?
We can't
probably back in the day, but I know Gerald Ford was because I knew he was a big Michigan fan and that sort of thing.
Matt laughed at that. Matt heard me. We kind of made fun of you, Jack. You missed it. Okay, we're going to go to the 10th Congressional District now, Democratic primary. This includes all of Montgomery and Greene counties, parts of
That's a little
Butler.
more interesting.
It does. Take a look at this. So Janice Beckett, we're going to talk about the nominees now. We have the time let's break this down. She's retired from federal service since 2023, has worked at Wright Pat from Centerville. David Estradi owns Next Wave Marketing, 4th attempt at the 4th district seat. And now I wonder how many of the candidates have a history like that. Your 4th attempt at this? That shows how much you really want this to happen.
That's called tenacious. What is that?
Yeah,
persistence beats resistance is what that is.
Mm-hmm. All of these
you just
candidates.
keep chip away at the stone. You never know.
Manuel Foggy, Daniel, Tony Pombo, Jan Kenner, all of them will be facing Representative Mike Turner running for the 13th straight term. He is running unopposed. Okay, race number 8, Ohio's 15th Congressional District, Democratic primary, Don Leonard and Adam C. Miller.
Now, there's a nice close race for you.
This is one. Take a look at this, 52%.
That can go either
Don
way.
Leonard
I mean, that's 1,000 votes.
Difference.
So that could go either way still.
So the former state rep lost to the current Republican Congressman Mike Carey back in 2024. The winner of this matchup advances to face representative incumbent Mike Carey. A federal judge actually ruled that Carey's GOP opponent, Samuel Ronan, lied about being a Republican, clearing the way for Carey to advance to this November unopposed. Alrighty, so let's keep it moving here. Take this away. Race number 31, Ohio State Representative District 37. This is the Democratic primary now. Phil Crippen, Tom Herner. The winner advances to November to face Washington Township Place native Representative Tom Young.
A little over 200 votes, very close.
Very close there, who is running unopposed, currently serving his 3rd term. Ohio State Representative Rep 39th District, the Democratic primary. Now, this includes most of northern Montgomery County, including Huber Heights, Vandalia, and Inglewood. DeQuan Neal, Mike Stevens. A little bit about the candidates here. Neal worked for the House of Ohio House of Representatives, but left the job to campaign for office. Stevens, former Clayton mayor, retired from Dayton Daily News. Now, the winner here advances to November to face Representative candidate Mark Campbell, who's running unopposed and is advancing to the general election.
All right, we move things along here and go on to the next one, which is Rodney Creech. This is the Ohio State Representative 40th District Republican primary, and it encompasses all of Preble County, the western portion of Montgomery County, and northern section of Butler County. And there you see Rodney Creech with a 57 to 43% lead over J. Todd Smith. So that could go either way. Creech is a third-term incumbent, so he's one of those guys that has experience, and he's been doing it.
And then at state representative 70th district Republican primary, this is the western portion of Greene County. Okay, Brian Lampton is the incumbent here. Terry Dale Free, Brian Lampton running fourth and final term here, chairs the joint House and Senate Business First Caucus. Let's see here, Terry Dale Free, who's from Beaver Creek and a sign language interpreter. So the winner here will advance to November to face Democratic Kim McCarthy, running unopposed in the primary.
All right, we move on to the 80th district, and you see it there. Now, this covers all of Miami County and the southern portion of Darke County. Democratic primary here, and Katie Kohler Wagner with a whopping 71% of the vote in, 54% of the votes cast in this one we have collected, and it looks like Katie Kohler is going to win this one. We will see how that goes on. Katie Kohler Wagner, Wright State University graduate, local organizer and activist, and the winner will face Jonathan Newman, who is an incumbent.
All righty.
We go to the
Jack,
85th.
Yep.
All right, we go to the 85th district here, and this covers all of Champaign County, Shelby County, along with southern portions of Logan County. And Victoria Maddox with a slim lead over Pamela Grogjean at 41% to 38%. John Clayton is sitting at 21%. John Clayton Newland, that is.
All righty, Jack, thank you so much for that breakdown. Thank you so much for coming on. And
I'm going to go do the
me.
10 o'clock news on Dayton CW, but you're on up until 10 o'clock.
Yep,
so
I'll
stay
be
right
breaking
here
down those results.
and keep it going. But pleasure to be on the program
so much,
tonight.
Jack.
Thanks so much for having me
Don't
on.
get you
and
very much.
and those people who went out and vote today,
Well done.
doing your
Good
job. We appreciate it. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jack. All right, let's jump right back in here to some races. There's our local election headquarters for you, WDTN.com. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's jump right back in here to things. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look at Franklin City Schools. They're on the 1% income tax levy. They're looking to place a 1% traditional income tax on this ballot. That's what we're looking to find out for today. Let's see. Yes, around 35%, around 1,500 votes. No, around 65% with more than 2,800 votes there. So that's something else we're going to have to see exactly how that plays out. Let's move on to another levy here this evening. What's going on in Wapakoneta? This proposed tax levy is for parks and recs. Let me see here. Okay. Let's see. This is at yes. Okay. We actually have had some change. 45% yes with more than 500 of the votes. No here, 55%, more than 690 votes. Still plenty of time left. Again, unconfirmed. We'll see exactly how this comes in tomorrow. Finally, Xenia Schools are looking at a renewal levy. This has actually been renewed several times since it originally passed, and this was decades ago, back in 1986. Now, this is not a new tax here, but if passed, it would run through 2031. So these funds will pay for expenses related to maintenance, repairs, and renovations for the school. Finally, Miami County levy proposed sales and use tax. A majority affirmative vote is necessary for this passage. The Board of County Commissions of Miami County proposed to levy a sales and use tax in the amount of 0.5% for the purpose of constructing, acquiring, equipping, repairing a detention facility in the county for a period of 10 years. That's what Morgan was talking a little bit about ago. We heard from her, so that's another issue we'll be keeping our eyes on. We ran through several of these updates. Here's a look at so many of the votes that we already have in. Make sure you're staying with us for the latest. We're going to go back now to Dr. Hannah for essentially what we can call a wrap-up of what an eventful night, I guess I can call it. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to kind of see how some of these races are going to ultimately line up now. And also I think you do see, I don't know if it's the broader economy that's affecting this vote, but quite a bit of resistance to levies kind of writ large. We've seen quite a few with the no leading or locked up, and that could be saying something about the broader economy or just something about a broader kind of cultural moment we're in, where I think people are a little more suspicious of government spending.
And Jack talked a little about that being more of an emotional issue when people head out to the polls and considering what's really important to them. But everyone's child is important. Where their kid goes to school, what they're learning is important. I guess, what are some of the other factors I think that voters are probably considering when they're going to the polls and they're looking at these things on the ballot? Like these levies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, definitely some people are impacted by the fact that they're on like a fixed income. And so that's going to impact, everything, especially with like property taxes. Another issue we see is if people do have a deeper investment in the community. I think one of the challenges for some of our communities around the base is that people know they're going to be there for 3 or 4 years and then move somewhere else. So that can matter too.
Okay, so we've touched on levies, which is something we did not get to touch on about a lot. But I want to do something interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about these acceptance speeches and some of the things that you heard that were of interest to you now that we've made it through the primaries. One of the things that I took note of listening to Dr. Amy Atkins, her acceptance speech, it seems like she was really touting the Make Ohio Affordable Again slogan, whereas we just heard from Ramaswamy, of course, he has that endorsement from President Trump, so he's naturally Make America Great Again. But a question I want to pose to you, and I'll do my best to do that, is how do we essentially anticipate both of these slogans battling out in November? What do we think that will look like, if that's a
And some of it is out of these candidates' hands, right? If the economy takes a turn for the better, then that's going to help Ramaswamy and the Republicans writ large, versus if we continue to see high gas prices, inflation, those types of challenges, that's just naturally going to compel some people to come out and vote for change, or to vote to sanction those in power already. And so, I think Acton is smart to try to run with this type of descriptive, this type of slogan. And, I think the big challenge, though, will be how are you going to accomplish that? So I think that will be the challenge for Acton, is to have a detailed platform that expresses exactly how they can make Ohio more affordable.
Right. And we heard from, just staying on these acceptance speeches, we heard from Sherrod Brown. We didn't get a chance to hear from Jon Husted, of course, but some of the things, and I did ask about this just because this is something that stood out to me, was the mention of the Epstein files. And you mentioned, of course, that was in relation to, Jon Husted's reaction, or I will say his reaction to those files.
Yes,
so, right?
And I believe it was a vote to release the files that he voted with the majority Republican caucus, to withhold those files.
Well, I wanted to ask, was outside of that, was there anything else that you heard during that speech that voters should be paying attention to from him moving forward?
Yeah, I think Brown is going to benefit by Trump not being on the ticket. Because there are a lot of people that love Donald Trump, come and vote for him the last 3 elections, but don't necessarily show up in those midterms to vote for people that Trump tells them to vote for.
And where is that disconnect coming from? I'm sorry to interrupt you there. But
I think Trump is a once in a generation type of politician, where he just for the people who, he creates a deep response on both ends, right? The anti-Trump fervor and the pro-Trump fervor. And so if we think about Trump, he draws certain people that are love him, adore him, but don't necessarily stay clued into politics when he's not on the ballot. And so that's something that I think Sherrod Brown is aware of. This helped him win back in 2018 when he ran, during kind of an election where there was a win behind the Democrats' back. So that's definitely something he'll be working with. And then, I think he'll be trying to paint Husted as out of touch and as disconnected.
Well, we're going to do something. We're going to go back to some of these full screen, some of these results that we were talking about, and maybe have you break them down for us. We were just talking about those levies. Let's go and take a look at that. And especially, we were just talking about the Miami County, this jail levy. I guess I won't even just go to that. I'll ask you, out of some of the levies that are on this ballot, which out of all of them do you think will have the biggest reaction? Do you think saw the biggest turnout? The voters were like, this is something that is key and important to me.
Yeah, I do think the Miami Valley Jail did have a lot of attention, or the Miami County, sorry. So that will definitely be one to watch, and I think it's still close and not called yet.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
here we are.
Okay. Yeah, that's not as close as I thought. So
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it is surprising if there's a group that gets support from levies. First and foremost, it's first responders, it's law enforcement, and so if they're having a bad night, that's probably not good news for schools as well. So those are some things to keep in mind as you watch these results, and in many cases, when it comes to the big elections we're talking about, there's such it's the entire state's voting. It's so much of the game is name recognition, having experience, stuff like that. But when you get to these levies, it can be an effective campaign by a few people moving folks in their community to vote one way or another. So you really can see the local politics play out.
So we did want to say, Dr. Hanna, this is actually your 400th show with us. Is that media show?
400th media appearance.
Okay.
Yes,
Like,
yeah. Not all Channel 2, but quite a few with Channel 2. That's always been really good to me. So it's been a lot of fun to be here, and part of my career I never anticipated, but something I do quite a bit is do the media stuff and try to break down these elections and help people better understand what's going on in the community.
Well, we thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
here and
absolutely.
doing that for us. We're going to go now to our local election headquarters. We're going now to our Skype cam. Let's take a look at this really quick. Take a look at our website right now, your local election headquarters, WDTN.com. You can come here for all of your local election information. We're compiling results. We have the updates for you, information on levies, those candidates, any of those acceptance speeches that you want to go ahead and watch back. It's all here. All our coverage today with our reporters. We heard from 2 News reporter Kayla Farish, Sartaj Singh, Evan Bales, countless updates. And here's some more of it. So anything that you may have missed, have a question on, want to come back to, it's all here. Dr. Hanna, was there anything that you wanted to touch on before we left that you think is noteworthy for voters as we wrap up Election Day today?
Yeah, I think I am watching Ohio 10. Mike Turner is the incumbent, and he didn't have a competitor. He didn't have a challenger, but certainly the Democrat to win. If it's a close election, that could be really interesting.
Perfect. Dr. Hanna, thank you again. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. That wraps up our To the Polls special coverage. Our coverage continues. 2 News now, or 2 News at 10 o'clock on CW. Thank you so much.
Great.